Hi, fantasy readers. This is Corinne Norton, your fellow book binger, and you are listening to the Finding Fantasy Reads podcast, where you can test out a new fantasy story every single week to find your next favorite author. If you haven't already listened to last week's episode, make sure to skip back to it to catch the first half of this cozy paranormal mystery from Daisy Graves that's full of supernatural creatures and magical small-town secrets. I'm so grateful Daisy let us share this one because I knew Paeter would have a blast narrating it. Daisy's paranormal cozy mysteries are perfect for fans of Juliet Blackwell or Amanda M. Lee, and they deliver eerie charm with a twist of supernatural intrigue. If you're enjoying this story, you'll want to stick around to the end to hear more about her debut novel, which takes place in the same supernatural community of Eldergloom. For now, please enjoy Claws, Collars, and Curses, Part 2, by Daisy Graves.
Chapter 6. Befriending the Canine Enemy. I approach Detective Donovan's cabin with all the enthusiasm of a cat being dragged to a bath. The detective's home sits at the very edge of town, close enough to respond to emergencies, far enough to avoid neighborly small talk. A strategic choice that I might admire under different circumstances. Today, however, I'm preoccupied with the looming disaster of my missing key and the uncomfortable necessity of what I'm about to do. Ask for help. From a dog, no less. The indignity is almost too much to bear. The cabin itself is unremarkable. Weathered wood, slightly crooked porch steps, a garden that's more weeds than vegetables, entirely fitting for a man who considers good enough a life philosophy. What concerns me is the large, fur-covered sentinel currently watching me from beneath the porch with suspicious eyes. Duke, Detective Donovan's Chow Chow, the only non-magical creature in Eldergloom who sees through my carefully cultivated, ordinary cat disguise. Naturally, the ability to converse doesn't automatically confirm magical status. Otherwise, half the squirrels in Grimwood Forest would be applying for positions in the Enigma Society, and that pompous mouse from the conservatory would probably be running for mayor. No, Duke is not a familiar, not enchanted in any way I can discern, just unnervingly perceptive. I stop at the property line, maintaining a dignified posture despite my internal discomfort. "Good afternoon," I call out, my tone crisp and professional. "I require a brief conversation." A low growl emerges from beneath the porch, followed by Duke himself, a massive ball of golden-brown fur with a distinctive blue-black tongue and the permanent scowl that makes Chow Chows look perpetually annoyed with the world. In Duke's case, the annoyance is entirely genuine.
"I don't need your trouble, cat,"
he rumbles, stopping several feet away.
"Magical or otherwise."
"Believe me," I reply, "I take no pleasure in this visit either. However, circumstances dictate a temporary alignment of our interests." Duke snorts, a sound like a small thunderclap.
"Fancy words for I need something. Answer's no."
"You haven't heard the question."
"Don't need to."
He settles onto his haunches, fixing me with that unsettling direct stare.
"You magical types only seek out us ordinary animals when you're desperate. And you,"
he adds with a pointed look at my bare neck,
"look particularly desperate today."
My tail twitches involuntarily. "Your powers of observation are adequate."
"Better than yours, apparently,"
Duke retorts.
"Since you've lost something important."
I suppress a hiss of frustration. This is precisely why I avoid Duke. The creature is insufferably direct. "I haven't lost anything," I say, my voice clipped. "The Guardian Key has been temporarily misappropriated by parties unknown." Duke makes a sound suspiciously like a laugh.
"Stolen, you mean? right from under your whiskers.
Are you quite finished enjoying my predicament? I ask. Because, contrary to what you might believe, this affects you, too. Without the key, the protective barriers around Eldergloom will weaken. The Whisperer will grow stronger. Even your remarkably thick skull won't be immune to its influence. That sobers him. Duke may pretend indifference to Eldergloom's magical underpinnings, but he's lived here long enough to sense the darker currents that run beneath the town's quaint exterior.
What do you want from me?
He asks, his stance relaxing slightly. Information, I reply. I'm told something unusual was seen near this cabin last night, a shadow moving unlike any natural creature. Additionally, I'm tracking the movements of a certain Siamese who may be involved. Duke's ears prick up at the mention of Jasper.
That prissy piece of work? Saw him skulking around here last night, acting like he owned the place. Had something shiny in his mouth, too.
My heart leaps, though I maintain my composure. Indeed? And you didn't think to investigate? Duke gives me a look that could wither plants.
Not my business what you magical types get up to. Besides, I was comfortable.
Of course, I mutter. Heaven forbid you exert yourself.
Says the cat who spends 18 hours a day napping on velvet cushions.
I maintain a strategic state of restful alertness, I correct him primly. A concept beyond your comprehension, I'm sure. Duke rises to his feet, his substantial bulk making the movement more impressive than it has any right to be.
You want my help or not? Because I'm 2 seconds away from barking loud enough to bring my human running, and I don't think you want to explain to Detective Donovan why you're trespassing.
I swallow my pride. A bitter pill indeed. Yes, I manage. I require your assistance. The key must be recovered before the seal weakens further.
Well then,
Duke huffs, oddly satisfied.
Let's go find your shiny trinket. That prissy Siamese needs taking down a peg anyway.
Just like that? I ask, surprised by his ready agreement.
Just like that,
Duke confirms, ambling toward the property line.
Contrary to what you think, I actually pay attention to what happens in this town. Been watching you magical folk for years. The patterns, the movements. My human thinks he's the only observant one in this family.
He makes that snorting laugh again.
Humans, right?
Indeed, I agree, falling into step beside him, though maintaining a dignified distance. They miss so much of what's right in front of them.
Except my human doesn't,
Duke says, with unmistakable pride.
He notices things, doesn't always understand what he's seeing, but he notices. Been real worked up lately about that old manor of yours.
Gloomwood is hardly mine, I correct him automatically. I am merely its guardian.
Same difference.
Duke dismisses with a shake of his massive head, sending fur flying in all directions. I step delicately aside to avoid contamination.
Point is, he's been staring at papers about it for days. Says it's finally sold to some woman from the city. Blackwell or something like that.
Yes, I've heard mention of this Blackwell woman, I say as we make our way toward town. She seems to be at the center of several converging threads in this mystery.
My human doesn't trust her,
Duke offers.
Says her paperwork is too perfect, and he doesn't like how that real estate agent keeps showing up at odd hours.
Boris Croft, I murmur, Jasper's human.
That's the one with the shiny shoes and fake smile,
Duke confirms.
Smells like too much cologne and secrets.
Despite myself, I'm impressed by Duke's observations. Perhaps there's more to this grumpy canine than I've given him credit for. Where did you last see Jasper? I ask, picking up the pace slightly. The real estate office, that gleaming pustule on the otherwise charming town square, all polished glass and brass fixtures, utterly at odds with the weathered dignity of the surrounding buildings. A place of commerce, though few in town respect why. Then that's where we're going, I decide. Duke gives me a sideways glance, his wrinkled face impossible to read.
Never thought I'd see the day. The great guardian Tiberius working with a common dog.
Desperate times, I replied dryly, though if you tell anyone about this, I'll deny it categorically.
Who would I tell?
Duke rumbles, something almost like amusement in his voice.
The squirrels?
You might be surprised who listens to gossip in this town, I say, eyeing a crow watching us from a nearby rooftop with too much interest.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised at all,
Duke replies.
This place has always been weird. I just pretend not to notice. Makes life simpler.
As we continue toward the lighthouse, an unlikely alliance forged by necessity, I wonder what other surprises this day has in store. The threads of this mystery are tangling in ways I never expected, centering on Gloomwood Manor and its new owner. This Blackwell woman has no idea what she's walking into. For her sake, and for Elder Gloom's, I hope she's made of sterner stuff than the average human, because if my suspicions are correct, she's going to need it. Chapter 7. A Siamese with Sticky Paws. The Elder Gloom real estate office sits like a gleaming pustule on the otherwise charming town square, all polished glass and brass fixtures, utterly at odds with the weathered dignity of the surrounding buildings. The sign proclaiming Croft and Associates in aggressively modern font might as well read, "We'll sell your soul for the right commission." Are you certain he's in there? I ask Duke, who sits beside me in the alley across from the office, panting slightly from our brisk walk.
Positive,
Duke rumbles.
Saw him slip through that fancy cat door Boris installed last month. Gold-plated nonsense. Who needs a gold-plated cat door?
Jasper, evidently, I reply dryly. He does have a flair for the ostentatious. Duke snorts, sending a small cloud of fur drifting into the air between us.
That what you call it? I call it being a pretentious furball.
I can't entirely disagree with his assessment, though I'd never admit it aloud. The question is how to approach this. Jasper might be slippery when confronted.
I could chase him up a tree,
Duke suggests helpfully.
Or corner him in the supply closet.
Your subtlety is overwhelming, I observe. However, I prefer a more dignified approach.
Suit yourself,
Duke huffs, settling more comfortably onto his haunches.
But if you want my opinion...
I don't recall soliciting it.
You magical types overthink everything. Sometimes a direct approach works best.
I consider this for a moment, my tail twitching thoughtfully. Perhaps you're not entirely wrong, I concede, though I'll thank you not to look so satisfied about it. Duke's wrinkled face somehow manages to look even more smug. Wait here, I instruct him. If he attempts to flee, block the exit.
So I'm the muscle in this operation?
Duke asks, sounding oddly pleased by the concept. You're the immovable object to his very stoppable force, I clarify, already moving toward the office. Try not to shed excessively on the premises.
No promises,
Duke calls after me. I cross the street with deliberate casualness. Just another black cat going about his business. Nothing to see here. Certainly not a centuries-old guardian about to interrogate a suspiciously well-connected Siamese. The cat door, which is indeed ridiculously ornate, swings silently as I push through it. The interior of the office is mercifully empty of humans, though I can hear Boris Croft's voice drifting from a back room, presumably on the telephone, judging by his artificial laugh and excessive use of the phrase tremendous opportunity. I find Jasper exactly where I expected, lounging on Boris's leather desk chair, looking for all the world like he owns the place. His cream-colored fur is immaculately groomed, his blue eyes half-lidded with affected boredom. "Well, well," he drawls upon seeing me, "the great guardian himself, gracing our humble establishment. To what do I owe this unexpected honor? Looking to buy that drafty old manor yourself, perhaps?" "I'm here on a matter of some importance," I reply coolly, leaping onto the desk to establish a height advantage. "I understand you've acquired a new colleague recently, a parakeet, I believe." Jasper blinks slowly, his expression revealing nothing. "Oh, you mean Jellybean. What about him?" "Jellybean," I repeat, unable to keep the distaste from my voice. "Is that what passes for a dignified familiar name these days?" "Zephyr Jellybean Montrose III," Jasper corrects with obvious pride. "He comes from a very distinguished line of magical avians, I'll have you know." "How fascinating," I reply, my tone suggesting it's anything but. "And does your distinguished colleague make a habit of flying around Gloomwood Manor at night? Because a yellow bird matching his description was seen there 2 nights ago, carrying something rather shiny." Jasper's ears twitch almost imperceptibly, a tell he's never managed to control. "Parakeets are diurnal creatures," he says dismissively. "They sleep at night, as any proper familiar would know." "And yet," I counter, "this particular parakeet was quite active after midnight, as were you, I understand." I notice it then, a faint dusting of silver particles clinging to his otherwise pristine fur, residue from the key, my key. "Taking a constitutional, were you?" I continue, circling closer. "Near a property you normally avoid like it's infested with water balloons?" Jasper's tail gives a single agitated flick. "It's a free town. I can walk where I please." "Of course," I agree smoothly, "just as I'm free to notice that you're practically glittering with magical residue. The key leaves traces on those who handle it improperly, you know." Jasper glances down at his betraying paws, his composure cracking for just an instant. In that moment of distraction, I pounce, not physically, but verbally. "The Guardian Key," I say with quiet intensity, "the ancient artifact you stole from my collar 2 nights ago, the magical object currently leaving this entire town vulnerable to forces beyond your comprehension. Where is it, Jasper?" His eyes widen fractionally before he composes himself. "I don't know what you're talking about. Perhaps you simply dropped it during one of your, what do you call them, strategic naps?" "Was it worth it?" I press on, ignoring his weak deflection. "Endangering the entire town for whatever petty scheme you're hatching with Boris? Or perhaps this is about the familiar frolic, your desperate need to impress the others with your cleverness?" His eyes widen further. "How did you—" "Please," I cut him off. "Your ambitions are as transparent as they are tedious. You've been lobbying to host the familiar frolic for months now, boring everyone with your elaborate plans. After years without a proper owner, until Boris came along, you've been disqualified from hosting. What better way to ensure selection this time than by flaunting the Guardian Key? Look at me, I outwitted Tiberius himself. Is that about right?" Jasper's tail lashes once, twice. Then, with a speed I almost admire, he leaps from the chair and darts toward the cat door, only to find it blocked by approximately 70 pounds of golden brown fur and attitude.
"Going somewhere?"
Duke rumbles, filling the doorframe with his substantial bulk. Jasper skids to a halt, fur bristling. What is that doing here? That, I reply with aristocratic smoothness, is my associate. I leap down from the desk with practiced grace, landing without a sound on the weathered floorboards. My tail rises like a banner of authority as I approach. And you're not leaving until you tell me where you've hidden the key. Duke looms in the doorway, his massive silhouette blocking the exit completely. The setting sun behind him creates a golden halo around his substantial form, lending him an almost mythical appearance that even I must admit is effective. Jasper's eyes dart between us, pupils narrowing to slits of panic. The real estate office's stuffy air suddenly feels charged with tension, carrying the faint metallic scent of fear. His fear. "This is absurd," he sputters, attempting to maintain his superior facade despite the nervous twitch of his whiskers. "You've dragged a common mutt into magical affairs? How desperately undignified you've become, Tiberius." "Let's skip the insults and get to the confession portion of our evening," I counter, circling him slowly. The polished floorboards creak beneath my paws, punctuating each deliberate step. Duke gives a low, rumbling growl from his position by the door.
"I saw you skulking around my human's cabin with something shiny in your mouth. Don't bother denying it."
A flash of panic crosses Jasper's features before he composes himself. "Well, if the dog says so, it must be true," he says with forced sarcasm. "Everyone knows how reliable canine testimony is." "The collar was found broken and discarded in Mrs. Ash's rosebush," I press on, my voice dropping to a dangerous purr, proving this wasn't accidental placement, but deliberate theft of the key itself. "Perhaps you simply dropped it," Jasper attempts again, but the slight tremor in his voice betrays him. "Confess," I demand, allowing a hint of power to enter my voice, the authority of centuries as guardian making the very air between us vibrate. "You took it. The magical residue on your fur proves it. How did you manage it? Who helped you?" Duke growls low beside me, his substantial bulk blocking the only exit. For once, I appreciate his intimidating presence.
"No fancy jumps or slick escapes this time, pretty boy,"
he rumbles. Jasper's eyes dart between us, that superior demeanor finally cracking like thin ice on a spring day. "Fine. Yes, I took your precious trinket," he hisses. Cornered, Jasper attempts to recover his composure, smoothing his fur with a few quick licks. "It was just a bit of fun," he says, his voice taking on a wheedling quality. "A harmless prank to liven things up around here. Elder Gloom has become so dreadfully dull lately, don't you think? All these rules and traditions." His tail lashes nervously as he adds, "Jellybean helped me get into the manor, but the poor fool had no idea what I was really planning. He thought we were just scouting locations for the familiar frolic. Kept going on about how hosting would finally give him some respect in town." A dismissive flick of his whiskers. "As if that parakeet could ever understand what real power feels like." "The key," I repeat firmly. "Now." "Perhaps," Jasper says, his tone shifting to something more calculating, "I should just give it to Boris instead. I wonder what a real estate agent would make of such an interesting artifact. He does have so many influential clients these days." The threat hangs in the air between us. Exposing the key to a human, especially one as opportunistic as Boris Croft, could have catastrophic consequences. "You wouldn't dare," I say, though a sliver of doubt creeps in. Jasper has always been ambitious, but this level of recklessness is new. "Wouldn't I?" Jasper's eyes narrow. "Times are changing, Guardian. The old ways are fading. Even that moldy manor of yours is about to have a new owner. Perhaps it's time for new guardians as well. Boris is a human with no magical ability whatsoever, I remind him. He wouldn't even be able to activate the key. Jasper flicks his tail dismissively. Boris may be magically inept, but he provides heated cushions, imported salmon, and that lovely golden door. Some of us prefer comfort to crusty old traditions. Besides, what he lacks in magic he makes up for in connections. Before I can respond, Jasper makes his move, leaping onto a nearby filing cabinet and knocking over a precariously balanced stack of folders. Papers explode into the air, creating a blizzard of property listings and contracts. In the confusion, Jasper darts toward a second exit I hadn't noticed, a small vent near the floor, likely leading to the building's basement. But Duke, displaying surprising agility for a creature of his bulk, anticipates the move. With a speed that genuinely impresses me, he lunges across the room, cutting off Jasper's escape route with a growl that seems to vibrate the very floorboards.
Enough games,
Duke rumbles, his usually placid face transformed into something decidedly more primal.
Where's the shiny thing?
Jasper, trapped between an angry Chow Chow and an increasingly impatient magical guardian, finally deflates. Fine, he spits, tail lashing furiously. I hid it somewhere no one would think to look. The town hall's antique clock, behind the pendulum. Happy now? Ecstatic, I reply dryly. And just to be clear, if you're lying, I'm not. Jasper interrupts, genuine fear flickering across his face. Take it and go. But this isn't over, Guardian. Elder Gloom is changing, whether you like it or not. That woman buying Gloomwood Manor, she's just the beginning. What do you know about Ms. Blackwell? I demand, suddenly alert. But Jasper merely smiles, a secretive curl of his lips that sets my teeth on edge. Enough to know that your comfortable little world is about to be turned upside down. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have grooming to attend to. Your associate has caused me to shed. With that parting shot, he slips past Duke, who allows it with a warning growl, and disappears through his golden cat door. You let him go, I observe as papers continue to drift around us. Duke shrugs, an impressive movement that ripples through his entire furry body.
We got what we came for. Besides, Boris will be done with his call soon, and I don't think you want to explain why his office looks like it was hit by a paper tornado.
He has a point. To the town hall, then, I say, already moving toward the exit.
One thing,
Duke says, falling into step beside me.
That Siamese was scared, really scared. Not just of me, but of something else. Did you notice?
I had, in fact. Beneath Jasper's bravado and threats, there had been a current of genuine fear. Perhaps he's finally realizing the consequences of his actions, I suggest.
Maybe,
Duke agrees, though he sounds unconvinced.
Or maybe there's something else going on. Something even he didn't bargain for.
As we make our way toward the town hall, I can't shake the feeling that Duke might be right. Jasper's parting words echo in my mind. Elder Gloom is changing. The question is, changing into what? And what role does this mysterious Ms. Blackwell play in it all? Chapter 8. Breaking and Entering for Beginners and Cats. Elder Gloom Town Hall after hours is a different beast entirely. All looming shadows and creaking floorboards, the weight of the town's history pressing down like a physical presence. The moonlight filtering through the high windows creates pools of silvery illumination amid vast stretches of darkness, giving the entire building an otherworldly quality that even I find slightly unnerving.
Remind me why we couldn't do this during regular business hours?
Duke grumbles as we slip through a partially open basement window.
When there's light and fewer things moving in the corners.
Because, I explain with exaggerated patience. Explaining to a town clerk why a cat and dog need access to their prized antique clock tends to raise questions. Questions lead to attention. Attention leads to complications.
Could have just said because stealth,
Duke mutters, his substantial bulk barely squeezing through the opening. He lands with a thud that makes me wince. Do try for a modicum of grace, I admonish. We're breaking and entering, not announcing a royal arrival. Duke shakes himself vigorously, sending dust motes dancing in the moonlight.
Breaking and entering. Great. Add it to the list of things my human would arrest me for if he knew.
Your moral quandaries are fascinating, I observe dryly, but perhaps we could focus on the task at hand? We make our way through the basement, past filing cabinets that smell faintly of mildew and forgotten municipal ambitions. The air down here is thick with dust and the peculiar mustiness that only decades of neglected paperwork can produce. My whiskers twitch at the conflicting scents. Mouse droppings, old leather bindings, and the metallic tang of rusting staples. The stairs creak alarmingly under Duke's weight as we ascend to the main floor, each wooden step protesting with a groan that seems to echo through the empty building. The temperature shifts as we climb, the basement's damp chill giving way to the slightly warmer air of the main hall. Beneath our paws, I can feel the subtle vibration of the building settling, like an old man sighing in his sleep. On the main floor, portraits of town founders line the walls like silent sentinels, their gilt frames catching what little moonlight filters through the tall windows. The canvas faces seem to follow our movement, eyes gleaming with unnatural awareness in the darkness. The floorboards beneath us feel oddly warm compared to the cool air, a subtle indication of the ley line running directly beneath the town hall, its energy seeping upward through the foundation.
Is it just me?
Duke whispers, his voice uncharacteristically subdued.
Or are those paintings watching us?
I glance up at the stern visages of Eldridge Thorne, Josiah Grimes, and Constance Carfax, the three who performed the sealing ritual of 1825. Their painted eyes do seem unusually alert tonight, as if they too sense the unraveling of their work. Not the first sealing I've witnessed in my long guardianship, far from it, but certainly one of the most significant. 4 centuries of maintaining Elder Gloom's barriers, and now everything threatens to come undone because of a mischievous Siamese with a golden cat door. Just a trick of the light, I lie smoothly, though we both know better. The veil between worlds is thinning without the key's stabilizing influence. The town's magic is becoming erratic. The main hall looms ahead, dominated by the massive grandfather clock that has kept time in Elder Gloom since 1825, the year the town voted to officially rename itself from Drearydale to Elder Gloom, after a particularly spirited debate involving 3 pies, 1 goat, and the mayor's missing left shoe. Its ornate face gleams in the moonlight, the pendulum swinging with hypnotic regularity behind the glass door of its housing.
That's where Jasper hid it?
Duke asks skeptically.
Seems a bit obvious.
On the contrary, I reply, approaching the clock with measured steps. It's rather clever. A shiny object inside a clock wouldn't raise suspicions. It would look like part of the mechanism, and retrieving it would require either opposable thumbs or—
Or what?
Duke prompts when I trail off. Or a level of dexterity most cats don't possess, I finish reluctantly. Duke makes that rumbling sound that passes for laughter.
Good thing you're not most cats, then.
I choose to take this as a compliment rather than engage with his sarcasm. Stand guard, I instruct, eyeing the glass door of the clock. Alert me if anyone approaches.
Sure thing, boss,
Duke replies with just enough irony to be irritating, but not enough to warrant a response. The clock housing's latch is simple but requires precise manipulation. I extend a claw and carefully hook it under the small brass catch, applying gentle pressure until it gives with a soft click. The door swings open silently on well-oiled hinges. At least the town maintains its historical artifacts properly. The pendulum swings before me, a hypnotic arc of brass catching moonlight with each pass. Behind it, partially obscured but unmistakable, is the guardian key, its ancient metal gleaming with a light that seems to come from within rather than merely reflecting the moon. Ah, there you are, I murmur, relief washing through me. Let's get you back where you belong. I reach carefully around the pendulum, timing my movements to its swing. The key is wedged into a small space between the pendulum's mounting bracket and the back of the clock, secure enough to stay put, accessible enough for someone who knows it's there. Clever indeed, Jasper. Just as my paw closes around the cool metal of the key, two things happen simultaneously. The distant sound of voices reaches my ears, and the clock, which should not chime for another 3 hours, begins to strike midnight. Bong. Bong. The sound reverberates through the hall with supernatural volume, seeming to shake dust from the rafters.
What did you do?
Duke hisses, his fur standing on end. Nothing, I insist, frantically trying to extract the key without disrupting the pendulum further. It's responding to the key's magic. Bong.
We'll make it stop,
Duke urges, dancing nervously from paw to paw.
Something's coming.
I recognize the voices now. Mrs. Ashe and the night custodian, their footsteps growing louder as they approach the main hall.
Swear I locked it before leaving,
the custodian is saying.
Must be that faulty wiring again.
I've told the council 3 times about those lights, Mrs. Ashe replies with the weary authority of someone who's recently joined the town hall staff but already knows its failings intimately. Since Gloomwood Manor's emptiness left her with too much free time, she's been keeping the town's administrative offices as spotless as she once kept Allison's study. This building needs proper maintenance, not just your occasional mop-over.
Swear I locked it before leaving,
the custodian is saying.
Must be that faulty wiring again.
Or mice, Mrs. Ashe suggests, though her tone suggests she doesn't believe it for a moment. This old building has plenty of secrets. Bong. 3 more seconds, I mutter, finally getting a proper grip on the key. I just need to—
No time,
Duke interrupts.
They're almost here. We need a diversion.
Before I can protest, Duke bounds across the hall toward a row of trash bins near the side entrance, his massive form moving with surprising stealth until the last moment, when he deliberately crashes into them with all the subtlety of an avalanche. Crash, bang, clatter. The noise is spectacular, drowning out even the 4th chime of the clock. I hear Mrs. Ashe and the custodian change direction immediately, hurrying toward the commotion. What in heaven's name? Mrs. Ashe begins.
Probably raccoons again,
the custodian sighs.
I'll get the broom.
With their attention diverted, I finally extract the key from its hiding place, clenching it carefully between my teeth. The metal thrums with power, sending a familiar tingle through my entire being. The connection reestablishes instantly, guardian and key, as it should be. The clock falls silent mid-chime, the pendulum resuming its normal rhythm as if nothing had happened. Duke reappears at my side, looking absurdly pleased with himself, despite the bits of trash clinging to his fur.
You're welcome,
he says smugly.
Your subtlety continues to astound,
I reply around the key in my mouth.
Got the job done, didn't it? Now let's get out of here before they come back.
We make our way quickly toward the window we entered through, pausing only when we reach the basement again. Duke eyes the small opening dubiously.
I barely fit coming in, he points out, with gravity on my side.
I consider our options, the key still humming pleasantly between my teeth.
There's a larger window in the records room, I suggest, the words slightly muffled. Follow me.
The records room window is indeed larger, though as Duke attempts to squeeze through, it becomes painfully apparent that larger is a relative term.
I'm stuck,
he announces, his back half still inside while his front paws scrabble uselessly at the exterior wall.
This is undignified.
I leap gracefully to the ground outside, the key still secure between my teeth, and survey his predicament with what I hope appears to be serious concern rather than amusement. Perhaps if you exhale completely, I suggest, after carefully placing the key beside me. Duke shoots me a glare that could wither houseplants.
I'm not a balloon, Tibbs.
I blink, momentarily startled by the nickname. No one has called me Tibbs in, well, centuries. Did you just—
Focus on the problem,
Duke interrupts, wiggling furiously.
I'm wedged tighter than Mrs. Ash's pickle jars.
I circled beneath him, assessing the situation. Try rotating slightly clockwise. Your shoulders are the widest part.
I know my own anatomy, thank you very much,
Duke grumbles, but attempts the maneuver anyway. He gains perhaps an inch before becoming firmly stuck again.
My human would have a fit if he knew what really goes on in this town,
he mutters as he dangles halfway out the window.
Breaking into government buildings to steal magical artifacts, helping cats, clocks that chime whenever they feel like it.
Your human, I remind him, patrols these streets every day, blissfully unaware that he's walking over ley lines powerful enough to bend reality. Perhaps ignorance truly is bliss. Duke makes another valiant effort to free himself, resulting only in a shower of golden fur.
Nothing about this position is blissful,
he growls. The moonlight catches the key where I've placed it on the ground. It pulses briefly with an inner light, responding to my proximity. The familiar weight of responsibility settles over me once more, the duty I've carried for centuries. But this time, there's something else mingled with it, a strange, almost uncomfortable feeling that takes me a moment to identify. Gratitude for not having had to face this crisis alone. I glance up at Duke, who has momentarily ceased his struggling to catch his breath. I suppose, I begin awkwardly, that your assistance was not entirely without value. Duke pauses to fix me with a look that somehow manages to be both smug and sincere, despite his ridiculous position.
You're welcome,
he says simply.
Though if you ever tell anyone I helped a cat, I'll deny it to my dying day.
The feeling is entirely mutual, I assure him with a dignified flick of my tail. This temporary alliance shall remain our little secret. Duke snorts, sending another cloud of golden fur drifting downward.
Good. Got a reputation to maintain.
As do I reply, my gaze drifting toward Gloomwood Manor in the distance, where the key belongs. Though I must admit, your assistance proved unexpectedly valuable.
High praise coming from you, Tibbs,
Duke rumbles, something like amusement in his voice.
Maybe you're not as stuck up as every other animal in town says.
Again, that nickname. I should correct him, assert my proper title. Instead, I find myself saying, and perhaps you're not quite the uncultured brute I presumed. Your observations about Jasper were rather astute. Duke's wrinkled face somehow manages to look even more pleased, despite being wedged in a window frame.
Told you, my human notices things, and so do I.
He pauses, suddenly serious.
Speaking of noticing things, Jasper knew something about that Blackwell woman, something that scared him.
Indeed, I murmur, my fear prickling with unease. For all his posturing, Jasper has never been one to frighten easily.
Think she's dangerous?
Duke asks, making another futile attempt to free himself. I consider this for a moment, remembering the strange convergence of events surrounding Gloomwood Manor's sale. I'm not certain, I admit, but I intend to find out. Gloomwood Manor doesn't choose its owners lightly. With a grunt and a particularly violent wiggle, Duke manages to gain another inch toward freedom.
Whatever she is, she's got half the town gossiping and the other half nervous, my human included.
Your human has good instincts, I concede, surprising myself with the admission, though limited understanding of what he observes.
He does his best,
Duke defends loyally.
Not everyone has 9 lives and centuries of magical experience.
I sniff at that. A common misconception. I don't have 9 lives. I have one very long life, and I'd prefer to continue it without grim agents or mysterious new residents complicating matters. Duke grunts again, this time making significant progress.
I think I'm...
With a final heave, he launches himself forward, tumbling gracelessly to the ground in a heap of fur and indignity.
Free!
Congratulations, I say dryly. That was almost elegant. Duke shakes himself vigorously, sending fur flying in all directions. I step back hastily to avoid contamination.
I should get back,
he says, glancing toward the direction of his home.
My human will be wondering where I am. He gets worried.
Yes, I should return this to its proper place, I agree, carefully picking up the key again, and reinforce the weakened wards before any more anomalies occur. Duke eyes me thoughtfully.
You know, for a stuck-up magical cat, you're not terrible company, Tibbs.
I should correct him, insist on my proper title. Instead, I find myself saying, "And for an overgrown dust mop, you have your moments, Duke." His wrinkled face breaks into what might charitably be called a smile.
If you ever need help again,
I know where to find you, I finish for him. Our moment of unexpected camaraderie is interrupted by voices echoing from the corridor, the unmistakable sound of Mrs. Ash's practical shoes against marble, accompanied by the deeper rumble of what sounds like the town custodian, Mr. Jenkins. Someone's coming, I hiss, ears flattening against my head. We need to leave, now. We'll have to split up, I decide quickly. Meet me at the bench in front of the town hall in 10 minutes. There's a side exit that will take you out near the rose garden. Duke nods, already moving in the opposite direction.
Don't be late,
he growls.
I hate waiting.
Punctuality is the virtue of those with nothing better to do, I reply automatically, but in this case, I'll make an exception. As Duke disappears around the corner, I slip into the shadows with the key securely in my mouth. The taste of ancient magic tingles on my tongue, familiar, powerful, and increasingly urgent. One crisis averted. The key now rests securely with me where it belongs, its familiar weight both comforting and sobering. And somewhere along the way, though I'd sooner cough up a hairball than admit it aloud, I seem to have acquired something resembling a friend in that shaggy, snoring mountain of fur. Chapter 9. A Guardian's Work is Never Done. I sit on a bench in the town square, the cool night air carrying the scent of salt and impending rain as I secure the guardian key to my collar. The clasp has been reinforced with a binding spell so potent that removing it would now require either my explicit permission or the complete destruction of my physical form. I'm not taking chances again. The weight of it against my chest is comforting, familiar. Even in these few moments since recovery, I can feel the wards around town beginning to strengthen, the magical barriers knitting themselves back together like a wound finally allowed to heal. The difference is palpable in the very air, less thin, more substantial. The whispers from the shadows have already receded to their usual background murmur.
Looks better on you than in that dusty old clock,
Duke observes, his substantial bulk settled beside me on the bench. He's spent the last 10 minutes methodically removing the last bits of trash and cobwebs from his fur, a process that involves much grunting and contortion.
Worth getting stuck in that window, I suppose, though I think I left half my coat behind.
It belongs with its guardian, I reply, unable to keep a note of satisfaction from my voice, as it has for centuries.
Must be nice,
Duke says, pausing in his grooming to look out over the misty grounds.
Having such a clear purpose.
The comment catches me off guard. I wouldn't have expected philosophical musings from you. Duke snorts, sending a small cloud of golden fur drifting between us.
Just because I don't talk about existential stuff doesn't mean I don't think about it. My human spends a lot of time staring at the ceiling at night, asking the big questions. Rubs off on you after a while.
I consider this, tilting my head slightly. I suppose we all absorb elements of those we spend time with.
Is that your fancy way of saying I've made you more dog-like?
Duke asks, his wrinkled face somehow managing to look smug. Absolutely not, I reply with a sniff, though I will acknowledge that your assistance proved valuable in this particular instance.
High praise indeed,
Duke rumbles, rising to his feet with a series of creaks that suggests his adventure has taken a toll on his joints.
Don't expect me to help with your magical problems again, Cat. I've got my own responsibilities, keeping my human from working himself to death, chasing off those annoying squirrels, maintaining neighborhood security.
Ah, yes, the vital task of barking at delivery personnel. However would Eldergloom survive without your vigilance? Duke gives me a look that's half irritation, half amusement.
Mock all you want, but you magical types miss a lot, locked up in your fancy manners and secret societies. There's plenty happening at street level that never makes it to your attention.
There's enough truth in his statement to give me pause. For centuries, I've been the solitary guardian, carrying my burden alone, observing the town from a certain remove. Perhaps there's something to be said for allies, even grumpy, non-magical ones who shed excessively and make too much noise. You know, I say, surprising myself with the sincerity in my voice, 473 years is a long time to guard something alone. Tonight was not entirely unpleasant. Duke's ears perk up, his wrinkled face registering genuine surprise.
Are you saying we make a good team, Guardian?
I'm saying, I reply carefully, that perhaps having an ally isn't the worst idea, particularly given the changes coming to Eldergloom.
Well then,
Duke huffs, a peculiar softness entering his gruff voice.
Guess I'll see you around, Tibbs.
The nickname hangs in the air between us. No one, absolutely no one, has dared address me so informally in centuries. I should be offended. I should correct him immediately. It's the third time tonight he's used that diminutive, each utterance more presumptuous than the last. Instead, I find myself oddly touched by the gesture of familiarity. I suppose you will, I concede with as much dignity as I can muster, though I'd appreciate it if you kept that particular name between us. I have a reputation to maintain, and Tibbs hardly inspires the appropriate level of reverence and fear.
Your secret's safe with me,
Duke says, his tail wagging slightly.
I should head back. My human will be up soon, and he gets suspicious when I'm not in my usual spot by the wood stove.
I rise as well, stretching languidly. I'll accompany you part of the way. I offer, surprising us both. We make our way down the winding path that leads from Gloomwood Manor to the town proper, an unlikely pair moving in companionable silence. The morning mist swirls around our paws, ghostly tendrils that seem to reach out before dissipating in the strengthening sunlight.
My human's been looking at that manor,
Duke says suddenly as we reach the edge of town.
Says there's a new owner coming. Someone named Blackwell. He's curious about her. Says it's odd for a city woman to want an old place like that.
Your human is more perceptive than most, I admit. Perhaps he senses more than he lets on. Duke makes a sound somewhere between a laugh and a snort.
Humans,
he says, shaking his massive head.
Always missing what's right in front of them.
Not all of them, I reply thoughtfully. Some have an innate sensitivity to the currents that run beneath the surface of things. They might not understand what they're feeling, but they feel it nonetheless.
Like my human,
Duke agrees.
Gets these hunches he can't explain. Drives him crazy trying to make them fit into his logical detective brain.
We part ways at the town square, Duke heading toward his human's cabin while I linger, watching as the town slowly comes to life. Shopkeepers unlock doors, early risers hurry toward the Misty Mariner for their morning coffee, birds begin their daily chorus. It all seems so normal, so mundane, yet beneath it all runs the current of ancient magic, the ley lines that feed the seal, the barriers that keep the whisperer contained. The fragile normalcy of Eldergloom exists only because of constant vigilance. Mine, the Enigma Society's, and perhaps, in their own unwitting way, observers like Duke and his human. I slip through Gloomwood's gardens, the familiar path welcoming me home. The key hums gently between my teeth, eager to be restored to its proper place. The manor looms against the night sky, its weathered silhouette both imposing and comforting, a sentinel that has stood watch alongside me for centuries. Inside, I make my way directly to a ritual room hidden behind the library's false wall. The air grows thick with magic as I approach, the very atmosphere recognizing what I carry. The room welcomes me like an old friend, cool stone beneath my paws, the lingering scent of beeswax candles, and that perfect patch of afternoon sunlight that pools precisely in the center of the ancient circular rug. Despite all its mystical significance, I adore this room for entirely mundane reasons. It has the perfect acoustics for a dignified nap. The stone walls block out the irritating sounds of the outside world, the temperature remains constant regardless of season, and the rug, worn thin in exactly the right spots from centuries of ritual footsteps, has achieved that perfect balance between cushioning and support. There, I murmur, feeling the protective wards strengthen immediately as I check the wards for the night. Back where we belong. The manor seems to sigh around me, creaking timbers and settling foundations creating a symphony of relief that only I can interpret. The connection between guardian, key, and dwelling reestablishes itself, flowing through the ley lines beneath us like a current of pure energy. I allow myself a moment of quiet satisfaction before padding back to the library. As I settle onto my favorite velvet chase, I cast my senses outward, feeling the renewed strength of the protective barriers rippling through Eldergloom. For tonight, at least, the town is safe. The whisperer remains contained. Balance is restored. Yet Jasper's words echo in my mind. Eldergloom is changing, and the imminent arrival of Miss Blackwell at Gloomwood Manor promises disruption of a different sort. I curl into a comfortable position, tail wrapped neatly around my paws. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, no doubt, but tonight I've earned my rest. After all, even magical guardians need their catnaps. Epilogue: New Beginnings and Old Guardian. I blink slowly, emerging from the depths of a particularly satisfying nap in a patch of weak winter sunlight that has managed to penetrate Gloomwood's dusty windows. The familiar pressure against my throat is comforting, like greeting an old friend after a brief but alarming separation. My contemplation is interrupted by a gentle weight around my neck, the guardian key, now safely restored to its proper place on my collar. I stretch languorously, feeling each vertebra align with a satisfaction that only cats can truly appreciate. My muscles ache pleasantly from last night's exertions. Breaking into government buildings is surprisingly taxing, even for a being of my considerable magical fortitude. The key hums softly against my fur, its metal warm despite the chill in the air. Its gentle vibration sends a reassuring tingle through my body, confirming that the wards around Elder Gloom are once again stabilizing. The scent of old books and furniture polish fills my nostrils as I inhale deeply, along with the faintest trace of that distinctive magical energy, cinnamon and petrichor, that always surrounds the key. After the chaos of yesterday, this moment of peace feels earned, necessary even, though I'd never admit it aloud. Retrieving the key had been challenging, and doing so with canine help, absolutely mortifying. I allow myself a moment of relief as I stretch luxuriously on the library windowsill, the early morning light warming my fur. The manor is more settled today, the walls no longer creaking with quite so much anxiety. Even the dust motes dancing in the sunbeams are less agitated. All is as it should be, I murmur to myself, running one paw over the key to reassure myself of its presence. Crisis averted, dignity mostly intact. My stomach rumbles, reminding me that even magical guardians require sustenance. A proper morning patrol of the grounds seems in order, both to check the strengthened wards and to locate breakfast. Perhaps that plump field mouse I spotted yesterday has returned to the garden. I leap gracefully from the window-sill and make my way through the silent corridors of Gloomwood Manor. Outside, the morning air carries the crisp scent of fall, fallen leaves, distant wood smoke, and the perpetual hint of salt from the nearby coast. The garden is alive with potential prey, small rustling in the underbrush that would normally command my full attention. But my contemplation is interrupted by the arrival of Boris Croft's gleaming sedan, pulling up in front of the real estate office across the square. The morning sun has barely crested the horizon, yet the man himself emerges looking offensively chipper, clutching a large "Sold" sign. He marches purposefully toward Gloomwood Manor, whistling tunelessly. I follow at a discreet distance, watching as he hammers the sign into the ground near the front gate with unnecessary vigor. From this angle, I can see through the front window of the real estate office, where a stack of paperwork sits prominently on the desk. The top page bears a signature I can just make out: Lenora Blackwell. So, it's official. Gloomwood Manor has a new owner. Quite the spectacle, isn't he? I turn to find Jasper sitting a few feet away, his cream-colored fur meticulously groomed as always, though there's a slightly subdued quality to his usual preening. The embarrassment of being caught red-pawed, I suppose. Your human does seem to enjoy the theatrical aspects of his profession, I reply neutrally. Jasper watches Boris photograph the "Sold" sign with his phone, presumably for some social media announcement. He's excited about this sale, says it's going to put Croft and Associates on the map, or some such nonsense. I'm surprised by Jasper's apparent willingness to engage in civil conversation after our recent confrontation. Perhaps he's offering an olive branch, or, more likely, he simply can't resist being the one with information to share. The new owner arrives next week, Jasper continues, confirming my suspicion.
I hear she's coming to turn the place into a bed and breakfast after her divorce. He hesitates, then adds with uncharacteristic seriousness, My human says she lost her tech job in those big layoffs. Apparently, she doesn't believe in magic, not one bit. Thinks she'll debunk the manor's haunted reputation to attract more practical-minded guests. I absorb this information silently. A skeptic, a practical-minded woman from the city, starting over after personal and professional setbacks, planning to transform Gloomwood Manor, a nexus of magical energy and the anchor point for Elder Gloom's protective barriers, into a quaint bed and breakfast for equally skeptical tourists. How perfectly, predictably disastrous. Is that all? I ask, my tone deliberately disinterested, despite the alarm bells ringing in my mind. Jasper seems disappointed by my lack of reaction. She's doing the renovations herself. Some DIY disaster waiting to happen. Boris says she has vision. He spits the word like it tastes bad. Though between you and me, I think Boris would approve of painting the town hall neon pink if it meant a commission. Your insights into your human's character are fascinating, I say dryly. Is there anything else, or did you merely approach to demonstrate your superior knowledge of local real estate transactions? Jasper's tail twitches in irritation. I thought you might want to know, given your attachment to the place, but clearly I was mistaken. He rises, preparing to leave. Enjoy your new housemate, Guardian. I'm sure you'll get along splendidly. You're both equally stubborn and set in your ways. With that parting shot, he slinks away, disappearing around the corner of the real estate office with his dignity mostly intact. I remain where I am, watching as Boris finally finishes his photo session and drives away, leaving Gloomwood Manor with its new proclamation of ownership. The morning sun now fully illuminates the weathered stone facade, the many-paned windows, the slightly sagging porch where I've spent countless hours observing the comings and goings of Eldergloom. Let her try, I think, the key warm against my fur. Eldergloom has a way of making believers of skeptics. But as I turn to make my way back to the manor, to prepare for this Blackwell woman with her broken marriage, lost career, and plans to remake Gloomwood in her practical image, I can't shake the feeling that bigger changes are coming to Eldergloom, changes that might require more than just one guardian to face. Perhaps it's time to reconsider my solitary approach. After all, even a cat as exceptional as myself occasionally benefits from an alternative perspective, even if it comes from a shedding, snoring chow-chow with boundary issues. The thought is almost as unsettling as the prospect of sharing my domain with a human who doesn't believe in magic. Almost, but not quite.
I hope you enjoyed listening to Claws, Collars, and Curses Part 2 by Daisy Graves, narrated by Paeter Frandsen of Christian Geek Central. If you want to read more by Daisy, go to daisygravesauthor.com to find more of her books. If you enjoyed the shenanigans of Eldergloom, be sure to check out her debut novel, Grave Beginnings, which follows psychic investigator Lenora Blackwell and her guardian cat in Eldergloom. If you enjoyed listening to Paeter narrate the story, you might also enjoy listening to his audio dramas at spiritblade.com or his podcast, Christian Geek Central, where he discusses movies, video games, and all things enjoyed by self-proclaimed geeks from a Christian worldview. If you're interested in being a part of the Finding Fantasy Reads volunteer team, I'm still looking for more readers, a website admin, and an audio editor. I have information about each of those roles in the volunteer application form, which you can find at findingfantasyreads.com/volunteer. As always, I will have links for all those sites in the show notes. Thank you all for listening, and happy reading.